going, Master? For a drink.
Sorry about the mess.
You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious.
All right, Mark Anthony.
Hey, Mark.
Welcome
Hey
to
there.
Rebel Force Radio.
That's good to be here.
Well,
It's good to have you here. It's you're somebody I've been wanting to talk to for a little while because I'm a huge Boba Fett fan.
Okay, that's
And,
right.
Yeah, yes. And Daniel Logan has dropped your name a few times in conversation with me, so I thought I should shake you down.
Okay.
Being one of the few guys to actually play Boba Fett. Now, let me see if I got this right. How many people have played Boba Fett? Of course, you have Jeremy Bulloch, Daniel Logan, Tim Morrison. Dickie Beard did the stunts. Don Bees, I believe, played Fett in the Return of the Jedi Special Edition. And you, sir, played Boba Fett in the New Hope Special Edition. Am I leaving anyone out? A stunt guy, maybe?
Stuntmen, yeah. There's several stuntmen.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
But I'd love to have an opportunity to
And the new guys from The Mandalorian. There's like maybe 4 or 5 new Boba Fett, so it's getting crowded in here.
There's a lot of Bobas in the house.
There is.
It's a Boba Fest, if you
It's a
will.
Boba Fest. It's a Boba
Yes.
Fest.
But it's great to have you on the show, and I want to talk all things Boba Fett with you. But just really how you got into the special edition. For people who don't know your story, it's pretty cool because you're a diehard Star Wars fan, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at the shirt. He's got the
He's got
Boba
the
Fett
Boba
Boba
Fett
shirt.
fan club.
There we
Boba
go.
Fett fan
Boba
club.
Fett fan club. There you go.
Awesome.
The Boba Fett
Representing.
fan club. You're a member of the Boba Fett fan club. Of course you are.
And for those
And
not
you're
watching the podcast,
Alan Harris. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to let folks know that if they're not watching the video, you've got all kinds of memorabilia behind you. You've got a Rancor, looks like a maquette or a statue of some sort. You got a Stormtrooper helmet, and also seeing what looks like to be a poster-sized Topps trading card. I think it features a Sand Trooper on a Dewback. Look at that. That's cool.
Is that a piece of artwork or is that
That's
a
my
blown
painting,
up-
yeah.
Oh, it's your
Oh, you
painting.
did that.
I did that, yeah.
Oh, that's
Wow.
fabulous.
And then we see,
And the probe droid and Leia and look at
Vader.
this.
well, we had no idea that you were also
No.
a traditional
An
artist
artist?
in the sense. Well, we knew you were a digital artist, but not an artist like that. Wow, look at that. He's holding up a Boba Fett.
That is some top-notch work.
Impressionistic. But anyway, sorry to derail the history question, but I wanted to let folks know that they were missing out of seeing all this great stuff in your studio or in your room.
Yeah,
How long have you been
Well,
painting Star Wars as on canvas like this?
I started 2018.
Oh, so just not that long ago.
Yeah, not that long ago, and I chose a Darth Vader painting from Empire Strikes Back. Well, a Darth Vader moment, a shot, and it really was just to see if I could paint something that looked kind of as close as I can to the finished movie, so that people would see is that a photograph or is that the actual? So I did it for just that one, and I thought it's a good subject matter because everybody knows every pixel of Star Wars. So if I mess up on something, they're going to be like, "Oh, doesn't look like Darth Vader." It's easy to mess up Darth Vader's face. You get something out of proportion, it looks wrong, and people jump on it because people know every pixel.
You saying Star Wars fans are picky? Like we know every little dot, every. No.
Oh, here's a pencil drawing of me. It's a self-portrait.
Wow. That is amazing artwork. So this is a shot of Boba Fett on Docking Bay 94 right outside the Millennium Falcon ramp, as seen in Star Wars A New Hope.
Yeah.
The special edition. I mean, I don't even think we have to call it the special edition anymore because they become the official versions of the film. So I think we just do that for fan clarity,
That's a touchy subject because I always felt that George did himself a disservice by kind of pretending that the original versions never existed. I really wish he had said, these are the special editions, these are my originals, pick and choose, and then all of us could kind of, make our perfect New Hope. Put back the the Greedo
On shot first.
conundrum. Put certain things back, take certain things out, and make our own perfect version. But I think he did himself a disservice by saying these are the new movies, regardless of what you fans think. And I don't think that was a smart idea, and I wish he hadn't done it.
Well, did you know at the time, as you were working on the film, that's indeed what you were working on, which is the new definitive edition? Or did you think that you were working on something that was just kind of a little celebration, I guess, of the anniversary?
Because I mean, what they told me is that you're working on a New Hope special edition, and just having that special edition, it makes you think, okay, well, this is a version.
Right.
It's a special edition. It's the special edition, not the original edition, the special edition. So I just assumed that they were going to have two versions of the movie, which is fine. And they were never, when I worked on New Hope, they were never going to have an Empire special edition. I don't know if you know that. They're never going to make a Return of the Jedi special edition. And had I known that, I probably would not have left ILM. I probably would have stayed at ILM for Empire and probably been in the suit for Return of the Jedi instead of Don Bees. He jumped in because I wasn't there.
Right. Wow. Well, let's start at the beginning. When did you start at ILM, and what was your job there, and how did you slide into working on Star Wars?
Okay, well, they hired me to work on a different movie, to work on Casper. And at the time, this is when CG animation is in its infancy. There weren't any, experienced computer animators at that time. There were very, very few, maybe a handful, and they all worked at ILM, most of them. But they needed a crew of computer animators to work on this character animation movie. And they wanted the animation to be or feel like a hybrid of 2D and 3D. So I got hired as a 2D animator that they were going to train in 3D to get the look that they desired for Spielberg. Spielberg was very adamant. He wanted it to have strong connections to the original Harvey cartoons. And so for that reason, most of the crew were 2D animators, and we all did 3D training, and in 10 weeks later kind of released into the world of 3D animation as the animation crew for Casper. So it was during Casper that I met Don Bees and got kind of my back entrance to the archives, because it was off limits. He knew I was a huge Boba Fett fan, and he set me up with my first gig in the suit, which was at Skywalker Ranch doing a summit that summer. This is summer of 1994.
Okay.
And he called me up and said, would you like to jump in the suit? I'd already been there and drooled over the armor and poured over it and put the helmet on and heaven. But he said, would you like to jump in the suit? And I was like, oh my God, of course, yes. He goes, well, don't build your hopes up, because if the suit doesn't fit, then you won't be able to do it. And we'll find you an equally cool other character like that existed in my books. But that's what he said. And so the following lunchtime, I went to Skywalker Ranch, which is a good hour drive from ILM, and tried the flight suit on. And, that zipper coming up was kind of my Cinderella slipper moment. It fit. And that was my entrance into being one of the guys that fit the suit. So this happened on Casper. This is completely unrelated to the creature animation I did for Special Edition, which came like a year later. That happened summer of 95, and this was summer of 94. So I had no clue at this time that I was going to be in the movie. I just knew I was in the suit. They said, you have to, it's such a hard task. You have to pretend to be Boba Fett for 4 hours in this. They completely built the Mos Eisley Cantina on one of the sound stages, complete with a bar with proper drinks and all the like president of Kenner Toys, Dark Horse Comics were there, Bantam Books were there, all the license holders were there. And it was mainly for a big hype to say we're going to be re-releasing the movies for this new generation that hasn't seen it in the theaters, like the kids of the fans.
Right.
So we want to re-release it. So with that re-release, there's probably a lot of marketing that can go along with it, obviously, because it's Star Wars. And so all these guests were kind of the VIPs or the license holders and you know, the big wigs from all those companies I mentioned at the cantina. And we had to, there was aliens at tables, there was the band miming to the music in the corner. I had to go around and just, you know, they said, don't talk, kind of play this very much like Mickey Mouse in Disneyland. You know, he doesn't say anything. It's all mime, pantomime, and he writes his name, and he doesn't ever say, you know, hello, I'm Mickey Mouse or whatever. I was like, but I could probably rip off the voice. And no, you're not allowed to talk. Not allowed to talk. Don't talk. Okay. And so 4 hours I was in that suit, and it was heaven. It was the best experience because it was like a VR. It was like virtual reality, except you could bump into the tables and you could bump into the aliens. And, you know, and I'd make a face at an alien and they'd cower away, and it was completely like a mind trip.
Mark, just so the listeners are clear, what you're describing with this recreation of the cantina was for this special event with all of these licensees and the VIPs. Yeah. It wasn't for the special edition, so there's not like special edition.
Was this on the scoring stage? Was this on the scoring stage at Sky Sound?
It's one of the sound stages. Yeah, it was one of the sound stages. I'm not sure which one, because we were just herded into a room somewhere. You know, it was packed with volunteers. Chewbacca was getting dressed. You know, the stormtroopers were getting dressed. So it was in this tiny room with double doors that opened into what was the Mos Eisley Cantina. And so I'm not sure what the sound stage looked like, other than through a small visor, you know, with lots of dry ice in the air, like lots of smoke.
Sounds amazing.
Like I said, it looked like the cantina bar, and had, you know, real patrons as well as, you know, volunteers in alien costumes.
Kind of what we thought that you know, Star Wars Land at Disney would actually look like. That it would be like stepping into the set of one of the films, you know.
I didn't know what to expect because they never told me what was through the double doors. They just said, you know, because guests were already in there. They were in there. They were getting drinks, and then it got populated very quickly.
Mark, I'm picturing you like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Turbo Man. You just they put the costume on you real quick, and then they just shove you onto the float, and you're like, "Whoa, where am I? What am I doing? Oh, I get to act like Boba Fett. I'll do it." It's like your Turbo Man moment.
Yeah, it really was. And the thing is that, you know, it got to maybe 2 hours in, and I was in heaven. I was in, because biggest Boba Fett fan at ILM. That's why Don called me. I was in heaven. So I'd get some guy kind of, you know, out of costume, come and grab my arm. So you got to take a break. I was like, no, I'm fine. No, you got to take a break. We have
union
to
laws.
Make you, we have to make you take at least a 5-minute break. So I was like a kid, you know, in detention. I had my helmet on my lap, and I was just sitting there. Okay, I've drunk. Can I go back in? No, wait there 5 minutes. Waiting to go back in. And even when it finished, nobody wanted to get out of costume, and they put the music on like they play regular music, and everyone was in costume dancing. It was the best experience.
Cool thing.
The best experience.
So this was an event that was to get the licensees all hyped up, saying, "Hey, Star Wars is coming back. It's coming back on the big screen." At this point, you're working for ILM. You're working on Casper, which, by the way, I love that movie. I've never really talked about it on RFR, but It is such a good film, and
it had so much to do with heralding in the new generation of CGI characters. Casper was one of the first leading CGI characters in a film, and then ILM eventually evolved that into Jar Jar Binks, and the rest is history.
Yeah, and I was the animation lead for Casper as well, so super privileged. I was on top of the world. Summer of '94, I was absolutely I thought I'd won the lottery.
Yeah.
I was working for the George and at ILM and living in California, and I expected to be there 18 months because my contract was for just the run of picture, so it's just for Casper. I knew I was going to be here for until June, July of '95.
Is that typical, Mark, in that business, that you would end up working for an effects company for a specific film project?
Yes,
that's typical. Okay.
When a film is greenlit, when it's got the official go ahead and the studio have greenlit it, in other words, this is like, okay, the train's rolling. That's when they hire the crew that they need to make the movie. And so it's a frantic kind of process, I guess, for those guys. I've been in a situation as well, being in the special effects industry myself, and had to hire a crew to work on, 40, 50 movies now.
Wow. See, I just had this image that at a company like ILM or Skywalker Sound, that there's, people that have been there 15, 20, 25 years that work on every film, and that doesn't seem to be the way that it works, really.
Well, there were people that were more experienced that were working at ILM, but they needed an entire crew just devoted to this one movie. Because we're making Casper in a small kind of corner of ILM. Over here is like Forrest Gump. Over here is The Mask, which was another great movie.
Yeah.
Over here was they were gearing up for Dragonheart. So ILM's divided into camps. And we were dubbed kind of Casper Land where we were. And so because they needed such a big crew, we needed a crew of 25, 30 animators. And so that's why they had to hire so many people and train them in the computer to have that many hands on deck. Because, like I said, there weren't any computer animators back then. We were kind of the newbies, but also the kind of the spearhead for computer effects and animation back then.
You guys were the young guns, bringing the new tech to ILM. And so then, how did you get picked to work on the special edition, and what scenes did you work on?
Okay. Well, we heard rumors, 1994 there were no rumors, but early '95 rumors started to trickle down, and I'd heard rumors before, but rumors at ILM, you tend to take, give a bit more weight to. So they were saying that they were going to hire 2 animators to work on A New Hope. And I was like, oh, damn it. I'm probably going to get sent home in June. Lucky whoever gets picked,
Yeah.
And so in June, they said, you have to go up to, I finished my last shot on Casper. It was all wrapping up. And I said my goodbyes to the producer and the production crew, and went up to HR. I thought I was going to be given my details on my flight, or however I was going to get the hell home. And they said, like I said, there's only rumors about them hiring 2 people, so I really didn't see much chance. Even though I was the lead for Casper. I didn't think that no one had said anything beyond this movie, and I was happy just to work on that movie, So when I went to HR and they said, "Oh, we've got to have you down as a full-time employee, and you're one of the animators on New Hope Special Edition," my jaw.
Wait a minute. That's how you found out?
HR told them.
You found out you're in a meeting for right. You're in a meeting with HR. You're talking about, I don't know, your medical benefits, and they go, "Oh, let me look this up. Oh yeah, you're one of the 2 animators working on the Star Wars thing. Yeah, you should get your new membership card in the mail next week."
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Is that okay? No, they said, "Is that okay?" And so I was like, of course it's okay. You know, I just have to call my mom and tell her. You know?
Isn't that odd, though? Shouldn't a department head be bringing you in to tell you this stuff? An HR rep? That's weird.
Maybe they probably let it slip. You know, 'cause that's things like that do happen in the industry because there's an army of people organizing. It's very easy for someone to step ahead of someone else. Oh, sorry, that should have been him telling you that. You know, it's happened a lot. It's happened a lot that, you know, the 2 animators went down to 1 animator before this happened as well, because John Knoll came along and said, "Oh, I'm going to be doing all the spaceship shots." Which I was like, "Oh, damn it!" You know, it's got all the spaceship shots. So all they needed was someone to do creatures, and because we'd done Casper, which was kind of, you know, an anatomical, you know, character, they thought, "Oh, if you can do Casper, you could probably do some dinosaur-esque creatures for New Hope." So the first things I had to do tests for were the Ronto and the Dewback, and come up with a walk cycle. And and the rest is history.
Wow.
I was really amazed with the Dewback and how mobile it was. And I recall seeing a Ben Burt IMAX documentary. I think this was even before I saw the special edition, where he had IMAX footage of the Dewback walking in the sand. And I thought it was just absolutely fascinating. Are you familiar with that documentary?
No, I haven't seen it. I didn't know they'd exposed it before then.
I think they did.
It probably was that first shot.
The Dewback or the Ronto?
The first shot of the Dewback was the one with the Lambda shuttle taken off, and you got the stormtroopers in the foreground.
Yes.
And the Dewback comes in. There's another one coming forward, and that, because it was the first shot out the gate, it wasn't actually that one. It was the other one where it walks across the screen. I have a story about this one though. But that shot was, because it was the first one out the gate, everybody was in on dailies, and it was like there were like 25 opinions about every detail, and people were pulling it this way and that way, and the leg should be raised up here on this frame, and the hips meant to be up, and they're pulling it this way and that, and I was in the middle just being tugged this way and this way. I'm the new guy.
Well, and all you had, in fairness, I mean, all you had was the original footage, which was just a big rubber head on a stick. And so, just out of curiosity, since you're working on creatures, I mean, do you have any history in zoology, or did you go out and look at lizards? What kind of research did you do as you were sort of trying to make this thing, you know, go from just a head to, you know, a full-bodied moving creature?
It wasn't so much lizards, because lizards are very much a different anatomy. They move very differently. I looked more at dinosaurs, you know, dinosaur movies. They finished Jurassic Park. You know, Jurassic Park had come out the year before I joined, and so all the Jurassic Park guys were there, kind of chiming in what they thought should be happening, and the result was it's been pulled so many ways that it ended up looking kind of very stop motion animation. It was very kind of, for me anyway, I see it. It's that one of the 2 shots I'd love to redo.
You need your special edition.
I think, no, they've had no special edition.
Yeah, but the fact that it has that sort of stop motion, I mean, is there a sense, you know, to you, I mean, that's sort of, you know, part of Star Wars' roots. I mean, you've got sort of stop motion with the Tauntauns, and was that sort of, I'm just so curious, when you were trying to marry the traditional effects, the models and all of that with the computer generated effects, were you trying to create some continuity there, or did you have the freedom to just say, hey, we've got these new tools, they offer more capabilities than anything in the physical world, we're just going to go for it?
Well, the thing is, you mentioned the stop motion that was in the original trilogy, you know, when the original movies in 1977 to 83, but they had just come out with Jurassic Park, which was a departure from that stop motion feel. and you know, they could get creatures feeling very naturalistic in the way they moved. So I was, after this first, each shot was budgeted separately, and so this first shot out the gate, like I said, that everyone had opinions about, went over budget. And so I said to the producer, I said, look, if you can just, I'm the animation guy here. You hired me to do the animation. If you give me the animation kind of say, they can chime in about how it's lit and how it, you know, is comped into the plate. But if you leave the animation to me, it will be cheaper. And cheaper, you know, that with a producer, that word registers.
Sure.
So following that first shot, I was kind of like the animation director from that point onwards for the creatures. And so the next one out was the one you showed the picture of the guy on the stormtrooper kind of coaxing the Dewback round. This one. Originally, this shot was a very ugly shot. Originally, the shot was just... I have a Dewback here to demonstrate. Originally, the shot was just a Dewback's butt in camera, very close.
Dewback
very
butt.
Close. And all it did was walk away from camera up that hill. Yeah.
Oh.
So I blocked it out, and when you block out, you don't do the walking, you slide it because you want a determination on how fast, so then you know what size pace it needs to take.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that version, I blocked it out, and then I put in another version where I had, well, let's do it. I'm mirroring.
This is cool. For those listening to the podcast, he actually has a Hasbro Dewback with the Tatooine Stormtrooper, and he's kind of acting this out for us, demoing.
Yeah.
This is so cool.
Yeah. So I had it facing the camera, because then you get to see its face, and I had the Stormtrooper kind of coax it so that it turns, and then it ends up and it cuts still the same place it ended. So I put those two versions into dailies, and the producer, his name was Tom Kennedy, he saw them prior to George coming down. And he said, what's this? What's this other shot? I said, this is an alternate version, you know. You can choose version A, which is the boarded version, or B, which is my less ugly version. Yes. And he goes, no, you take it out. That's disrespectful to Mr. Lucas. And so...
where's the butt?
I said,
I asked for I asked for the butt.
But then my point was, he has the butt version, you know. Right. If he chooses A, his butt. If he chooses B, it's
giving the man options.
Yeah, exactly. But he said, no, disrespectful. Disrespectful. I said, he has absolute power. There's no disrespect. Yeah. I absolutely respect the man. So he said, no, go upstairs and delete it. So I was up there.
Delete it?
Hovering,
oh, my God.
Hovering over the delete button from dailies. And I was like, you know what? I was a cocky bastard back then. You know what? I'm gonna leave it in. I'm gonna leave it in. So we're down there, and it comes up on the screen, and they ran all the shots.
I want to clarify. So you're in the screening room with George Lucas and the producer, right? Or no?
No. I'm in there with the producer. Mm-hmm. Like, if you imagine the screen in the middle is dailies. In the bottom, there's a tiny kind of strip, and that's a camera pointed at us. So you can see the producer, the effects supervisor in the front row, some other guys, the modelers and textures, and it's me way at the back. And in the top strip is two halves. There's one half. This is George Lucas, but in his San Anselmo house, his loft. On this side, it's Skywalker Ranch, and there's Rick McCallum. So there's a big producer, and then there's the ILM producer down with me on the bottom.
Gotcha.
So the dailies plays, and the butt shot comes up. Everyone's happy, and the producer's there in the front, happy, smiling. He looked like the guy from MASH with the glasses, the priest. Really mild-mannered, kind of, you know, a nice kind of.
William
He's
Christopher.
there. He's smiling, and then suddenly my shot comes up, and he suddenly, you could see steam coming out his ears. And, he didn't say anything, but he went red. His face went red, and he's like, didn't know what to say. And George says, "Oh, what's this?" And my hand goes up. I said, "Sorry, Mr. Lucas, this is just an alternate version." That's all I said. And then that just saying that sparked this whole conversation. Like suddenly he went from being kind of like blasé and kind of nonchalant to like getting engaged, and somebody started talking about it and saying about how it should be kind of feel like a cowboy kind of trying to get a reluctant horse to turn. You know, there should be some resistance there. And then finally it kind of comes around. And he was like engaged, was chatting, blah, 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 blah. And came out of his kind of malaise, if better, better word to describe
just
it.
kind of that sort of that typical George kind of just nonplussed.
Yeah, exactly that. And
Well,
he came out of this shell, and it was great.
Right.
I think
That is
George
so cool.
cultivates this atmosphere around himself that limits surprise. He doesn't get surprised very often. Everyone is just tripping over themselves trying to do whatever George wants. Nobody throws things at him, so he doesn't get surprised. Everything
He's
is just
protected. He has his own
Yes.
force field.
Yeah.
He has his yes men. He has his yes men standing there to say, "Oh, that's a great idea, Mr. Lucas." Like it doesn't matter what he says. He could burp, and they'd say, "Oh, it's a great idea, Mr. Lucas." Like, anything that comes out, they're ready to acknowledge and praise. And I guess after years of that, you've got to get like kind of
Right.
he's inside this protected bubble, but he's kind of
And he was
separated from the world a bit.
Yes, and he was sort of the antithesis of that in the sense that he went to film school where they beat up each other's projects and worked together, and then he kind of created his own, film school. He's got Zemeckis and Spielberg and various others, looking at those initial prints of
De Palma.
De Palma,
Don't
right?
forget De
Famously,
Palma.
right? De Palma, of course, and
Coppola.
Coppola, who of course doesn't mince words, and so isn't that interesting that was such a big part of his creative process as a up and coming filmmaker, and then it was lost because of his status and his stature and the sycophantic maybe way that people follow him, I guess. Really,
Yeah,
really
challenges.
How did they land on your alternates? How did they decide, hey,
He chose
this
it.
is the one
He
we're
said,
going to use?
like I said, as soon as we got engaged about it, it was obvious that he had rejected the other one because he was talking about what I could add into it to make it the shot. He had ideas and was stimulated, I guess is a good word. There's a couple of times that happened. There was another time I was doing a shot, and it was a stormtrooper dismounting off of a Dewback outside the cantina. And there's R2 and 3PO in the foreground. And I had this Dewback kind of sniff the backpack of the trooper that was the live action trooper in the plate.
Mm-hmm.
And George looking at the trooper dismounting, and he's like, "Where did you get that footage from?" Talking to Tom Kennedy. And Tom Kennedy said, "Mark, that's animated. That's hand animated." And he's like, "No." And I shook him.
Nice.
And suddenly he was out of his shell again and engaged. And there's only one other time that happened, and that kind of slid the wrong way. It was a shot of, and for those who are not watching and listening, I have a Ronto in my hand.
Yes.
But it was a shot of a Ronto. There had been many Ronto shots, but this shot was a big open square, and there's a Ronto walking through and a speeder bike weaving through, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And I put it into dailies, and I thought, I'm done. And then suddenly George said, "Oh, where's the guy who's holding the rope? That Ronto hasn't got a rider or anyone leading it." And it irked him. So I said, "Well, we could have someone riding it. We already have stormtroopers though. Do we have any Jawas?" And of course the yes men are like, "Oh no, but we can get them. Yes, we can get them." And that started this snowball where it became, first of all, it was adding a Jawa, then it became 2 Jawas, then it was a Jawa falling off the back, then it was him rearing up, and the Jawa falls off the back, and the other one's hanging and swinging around, and the speeder swerves in, and it just landslid into this big, I don't know, I thought I was done. I thought I was finished, and suddenly it became this huge thing which doesn't fit in the movie. It was an establishing shot. An establishing shot, traditionally, not much happens in establishing shot. It's usually a kind of a lock off. It's usually, all you're saying is, this is where the following shots take place. And suddenly this great big Cirque du Soleil kind of experience evolved in the space of about 5 minutes.
Mark, I cannot tell you how cool it is to hear you talking about this, because we've been living with these versions of the films for so long, and that I'll be honest with you, it's not that I didn't like that moment, but it does sort of jump out at me every time that I see it, because you're right, it's so un-Star Warsy in a sense that when you compare it to the establishing shots, as you mentioned, of traditional Lucas, where there's not a lot of busyness going on. No. And this is sort of kind of like Marx Brothers, or I don't know. I mean, just kind of
slapsticky.
Slapstick. That's the exactly.
Slapsticky. But I'll tell you this: that image of the Ronto with the speeder heading toward it in Mos Eisley, it was used in countless pieces of promotion for the film. Yeah. They said, see Star Wars like you've never seen it before. And there's that Ronto kicking up with the speeder bike flying by. It was in commercials and trailers and all that stuff. It was just really, I mean, that had to make you feel good when it was happening, right?
It did if I wasn't so embarrassed about it. Because for me, I just felt like there was a couple of other shots that kind of landslid. And once George had kind of seen it when it was finished, he realized his mistake and said, you know what, we should go back to, and he changed his mind. After I left ILM, somebody went back to visit, and they came back with the rumor about Greedo. And I said, that's probably one of those incidents where George has tried it. He'll see, obviously this doesn't work because it takes away Han Solo's arc. He has to be the scoundrel to become the hero by the end of the movie. That's his arc. So it's probably one of those things he's tried and he's going to reject. Because there were some other ideas he had and rejected. And I thought that was one. And it's only when I saw the premiere at Man's Chinese Theatre and that shot came up, and I was like, oh my God, he wasn't lying.
Wow. So you thought it was just rumor until you actually were at the premiere. And
because I was just in charge of creatures.
Right.
Except for Jabba. Jabba was Steve Williams, or Spaz Williams. Spaz Williams was the guy who directed me for the blue screen shoot. He was like the Uber, he was like the Glenn Keane or the Walt Disney of CG animation at that point. He was the guy that did the Terminator 2 walking out the fire. He did the water tentacle in the abyss. He did the T-Rex in Jurassic Park. I mean, he was like the guy.
Totally iconic. I mean, totally iconic. But can I ask, because we've talked on this show recently about that and the evolution of that computer-generated Jabba throughout the years. Yeah. What was it, or what is it about that puppet from 1983, 1982 that seems to be so difficult to achieve via computer, where with latex and slime and paint and the right lighting just comes across as so real? I'm very curious how you would describe that.
Well, they've only recently, and I'm talking about the last 5 years, I think, 5-6 years, managed to make truly believable creatures, like Jungle Book, where you like, wow, it's a talking panther, It's only been since 2015 that the technology has gotten to such a point where, that you can pull those kind of shots off. My argument was, bring back the puppet at the time. It's like, why are we doing this? We should just get the puppet. The puppet was as real as any other, actor, as real as Carrie Fisher, as real as Mark Hamill, Jabba the Hutt. This puppet was real. And I couldn't understand why they had something that worked perfectly, and then they opted to go, and it was this, it was because George was excited about CG. He was excited about the fact that you could recycle computer animation. If you animated a stap droid standing up, you can copy that animation and make it 1,000 stat droids just with one piece of animation. Even on this show, he was obsessed with the recycling or reusability of computer technology. So I couldn't understand why, when he asked for that, wanted to rear back, as his neck reared back, his chest really moved a lot. And at the time, as I said, this is my second year doing computer animation. I was very unknowledgeable back at that time.
Well, you picked a really small film to cut your teeth in, huh?
Yeah. We were all learning.
Start at the bottom and work your way up.
But the neck joints were towards the back of the neck, so a very small movement at the back would make a very large movement in the front because it was so far back. Underneath the Toronto, believe it or not, is the brachiosaur from Jurassic Park.
Underneath?
They took the skin off of the brachiosaur and they just put a new shell on it, and that was the Wonto. The scurriers that were more successful, I had them hopping out of the way of characters in Mos Eisley and running out of the way of the speeder. They were velociraptors with new skin.
Holy crap!
He was obsessed. He was obsessed with the reusability of computer technology, and so for that reason and that reason alone is why he was obsessed to make Jabba CG work. And there was a point where it never did look right. The eyes were wrong. The eyes are not slanted.
The eyes are weird. Yeah.
They're not right. There's things that don't line up. It's unforgivable nowadays to pass that Jabba off as like the final. But there was a shot where Han goes around the back, and they didn't mess with the footage. They had Han go around the back, and it looked okay. And then somebody said, "What about Jabba's tail?" And I'm like, "No. Who doesn't matter. Just this is movie magic. Leave it. Yeah. Don't do that. Don't go there. Don't open that can of worms."
Yes.
And once someone had said it, it became a thing. And then they opted to do that whole thing where he walks over.
Yeah, and then Jabba does that. Like he does that.
Like his eyes bulge out of his head and stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah, there were. Working on that show, there were a lot. It was very cool for me. I'm so glad I did it, but there were a lot of the choices that I didn't agree with, but who am I to say, "Hey, George, don't do that."
I love this. You don't have to prove your Star Wars fan cred to me at all, because you complain just as much as any other fan. And you were actually in the film. You actually worked on the film, and you complain about it as much as any other fan. So you, sir, are the true fan. Yeah.
I was complaining about it before anybody else.
Right. I was the first to hate on the special edition. Hey, did you do the ASP-7 droid? Was that a character that you worked on in the special edition?
It'd be the big clunky one, yeah?
Yeah, the clunky one, that punches.
I did walk cycle. I did the walk cycle, and we had him in a couple of shots. And like I said, they said, "Okay, you're finished," and I thought I was done. I didn't know I was going to do any more special editions. Disney were like calling, "When are you going to come down? When are you going to come down?" And so December of '95, I took off for Disney. And after I'd gone is when they decided, "Oh, actually, we're not quite finished." And one of the things that were added afterwards was that thumping of the little probe droid.
Yeah.
And so when I saw the premiere, I had some surprises. There was things weren't as I'd left them. There were shots in there that I didn't know they were going to do. I had no clue about opening up the Sand Canyon for when it pans down to show R2-D2. That was a surprise. I had no idea about Ben's house. I'd never seen any of that footage. All I'd seen were things like the cleanup. They'd done lots of cleanup for like the flames of the wirings. They changed it from pink to yellow because on the original blue screen, the blue screen once you get rid of the blue, the flames lose their yellow and become more pink looking. And so there were a lot of things, a lot of surprises when I first saw that
When you, yeah,
premiere.
and so give us an idea of what it was like to be on the set for the shooting of the sequence in Docking Bay 94 with, you know, I mean, you weren't there with all of them, but what was it like? Was it all blue screen or green screen? Was there anything practical there on the set with you?
No.
What did it look like?
There was a blue. It was all the floor was blue, and it went up into a blue backdrop. You know, it was just a whole lot of blue. And the only thing on the floor were you know, my start position was like a little kind of X, and my end position was another X for that first shot. So you start walking here, end there, and stop. On the second shot, there was another mark they put on the rear blue screen wall, which was the last known position of Harrison Ford's eye line as he went up the ramp. So I could look, as I am in this picture, I'm looking towards that mark on the blue screen that showed where Chewie and Han disappeared up the ramp. So that was it. There was a start position.
Wow.
Oh, and that second shot, there was a start position, a pause position, and then a walk-off position. You know, so you know, I had to stop at that mark, check out, make sure everything was cool, and then exit. And everyone says, you know, why are you looking at the camera? And I didn't know I was until I saw the rushes come in, because, you know, I'm in the suit.
Right.
So, you know, I'm doing this, but the T-visor lines up square on. And Steve Williams, nobody said, hey, looks like you're looking in the camera. I'm relying on those guys to say it, because I can't tell. I can't tell. But George loved the fact he said, "Oh, it looks like Boba Fett's mugging the camera."
It's badass. I think it's a badass move.
Yeah.
I really like it.
That's the exclamation point on Boba Fett's cameo.
I'm not
the first time I saw
it.
The first time I saw it, I was like, wait, did I just see Boba Fett in Docking Bay 94? Boba Fett's in A New Hope now? And then with the scene ending with him giving almost a knowing glance toward the camera, looking at the audience saying, bet you didn't think you'd see me here, huh? Well, I'm here. Yeah. That's the vibe I got from that. And it was just like such a wonderful rush. You know, just it really just tickled my inner fancy knowing that, oh, finally Boba is now in all three films of the original trilogy. This is right. This feels right.
Mark,
that was exactly George's reaction as well. But when people say, why'd you look in the camera? I really wasn't. But it's okay that it looks like that, you know.
Mark, what can you tell us about the suit that you wore on the set, and then also at that event that you were, the licensee event you were talking about? Was it right out of the archives? Is this the Jeremy Bulloch suit? Was this a replica? What was it?
It was, well, all the suit. There's so many pieces, and the pieces are never kept together. They're just pieces. They have enough suits, according to Don Bees. He said they have enough pieces to probably make 4 or 5 full Boba Fett suits. Just because, you know, on set, if something breaks, something gets busted, something falls off, they have a replacement they can just slap on. They don't have to stop filming to fabricate something. Right. So this is actually the same suit I wore for the summit. And when I was at the summit, I said to the they have someone help you get dressed, because it's very hard to get dressed on your own. I said to the guy, I said, the shoulder bells are swapped. And he goes, well, don't worry about it. We can't change it now. They're not Velcro. So, you know, okay. I said, forget I even said it. You know, I don't want to say I don't want to do it. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just pointing it out. And if it's not an easy fix, then screw it. I don't care. So, like I said, I did the summit. It ended up, the summit was so successful, we did a second summit, and I wore the same suit again. And that was the same suit that they picked out. They just rolled it out for the blue screen shoot, because they knew all the pieces were there. They'd already had it, you know, worn twice. That year.
Yeah.
You know, earlier the summer of that year. And so yeah, I turned up on the set, and Annie Polland was my wardrobe lady. She was the same wardrobe lady for Return of the Jedi, so she dressed Vicky Beers and Jeremy for Return of the Jedi. And so I said to her, I said, "You realise these shoulder bells are swapped?" She goes, "I don't worry, because the cape's this side, but the cape doesn't cover it up." You know, when she did it, the cape kind of covered it a little bit.
Yeah.
But as soon as we start filming, it exposed, and so people are very angry about the fact that he's.
I didn't know this was. I didn't know this was a thing. I'm assuming that a lot of the anger is either from the costumers or the action figure guys, because they probably want this variant action figure of this particular.
I want the variant action figure.
I would never. You know, it's so funny because like. I'm a huge fan, obviously, but this kind of stuff, it's hard for me to see. It's hard for me to notice the differences in the Vader costume from film to film, and I know that Boba Fett, you know, changes colors and things from, you know, Empire to Jedi. So when I see something like this, I mean, it's amazing to me that you, especially in that time when the internet was relatively new, so you know, so you only knew this from having seen the movies over and over and over. It's incredible.
But the thing is that those guys that complain will say they're true fans for complaining. I think the true fans are more forgiving. If you're a true fan of Star Wars, you are more forgiving of anything that is Star Wars. I think that describes, for me, a true fan. You love Star Wars, the franchise, enough to kind of gloss over things that really don't matter. Like, how come there's blood on the severed, you know, Ponda Baba arm? It shouldn't be cauterized. Who cares? It doesn't matter.
What about things?
Why are you obsessing?
What about things like?
I call them the recreationally outraged. That's what Joe Rogan once said. Perfect. Recreationally outraged.
That fits a lot of people these days.
Didn't you get a little recreationally outraged when Lego released the Slave One ship and they just called it Boba Fett's Starship? Didn't you get a little recreationally outraged? I heard something.
I don't think it's recreationally outraged. I kept getting these.
I think your dog is recreationally outraged right now. He needs a walk.
I was going to say before we start, I said, if Wookiee starts barking, it's out of my control. You know,
perfect name.
But I kept getting these tweets or you know, messages on Instagram or Facebook saying, "What do you think about the name change?" And I'm like, "What the hell are people talking about?" And well, you're Boba Fett. What do you think about it? You know, you're Boba Fett. What do you think about it? And I was like, and I had to look up what they were talking about. And then I read this article saying about the name change for the Lego set. And so I thought, okay, well, I was more upset than mad. I was upset because, like, PC has gotten so out of control. You know, I was kind of just bummed when they labeled the slave Leia, you know, Jabba's prisoner. It's like, oh, come on. It's slave Leia. You know, it's slave Leia. Yeah. And so when they started picking on Slave One, yeah, I was like annoyed, but I was also upset because I knew, regardless of the outcome, it was going to be a thing from this point onwards. And like you said, it's the thing we're talking about, and it will forever be associated with Slave One ship. You know, everyone's going to have that at the back of their mind. It's kind of marred. There's like a kind of dirty stain on Slave One, just because they made it an issue. You know, they brought it up.
Right. Right. So it's so funny. It's a lot of times it's like it's the people that notice something that are the ones that really seem to have the guilty conscience in a way. You know, it's like, well, no one had a problem with this until some executives at Lego said, I don't think this is appropriate anymore. It's like, wait a minute, what are you reading into this? This thing's been around for, 40 some years. Yeah. All of a sudden you've got a problem with it.
And the Slave One, the name itself actually is steeped in ILM history. The way that the starship was named in the first place was there was an internal
competition
contest, at ILM, and everyone pitched in their names, and
Yeah.
that was chosen as the winner. Slave One.
Yeah, and it's so perfect. If you're going to give Boba Fett an edgy named ship, that's perfect. It's so perfect for making it ominous and kind of dark, and so anyway, so I heard this, and so I just posted, like, how far is this going to go? Is the Death Star next? You know,
Well, how far is it going to go?
Right.
That is a good question.
And it's
I
a
mean, we
joke,
have to
but
protect
it's
the
not really a
integrity.
joke. Yeah. So I posted. This
I don't know
tweet
about
out,
you,
and
but
made fun.
I just ordered my Lifestar playset from Lego.
Lifestar.
Brand new. Yeah, it's the Lifestar.
It's Star Friends. It's not Star Wars. Star Friends.